now that we've cleaned all the components, it's ready to install the new seals. Put a little bit of grease and line the outer O-ring of the seal, and this will provide some lubrication and some additional sealing. Carefully, always be careful of this inner part of the seal. That's the active part. We don't want to touch that. Install that in there. Using the number 4 tool, use a rolling orbital motion and gently place that in, and you'll feel it pop in. The O-rings will pop past the clip groove. Make sure you have your safety glasses on whenever you're using these clips. They can clip out and strike your eyes. Make sure you got your glasses on. Put that clip in, and using, again, kind of a rolling motion with your fingers, and then use the same number 4 tool, and you should hear a click. Visually inspect that that clip has clipped completely in the groove inside there. That retains the seal. Do the same thing on the other side. Put a little grease on the outside of the seal all the way around it. Try not to get any grease on the inside of the seal. It's not going to hurt it, but that seal isn't designed to have a lot of grease on it. Again, using kind of an orbital motion, push that in and you'll feel it seat firmly. Take your second clip, again with a little orbital motion. Take your tool and you'll hear it snap in there. And again, visually make sure that the clip is fully engaged. So take your bearing spacer. You've inspected that there isn't any grooves or any marking or anything in here. Now this is important. From the disc side, carefully mate it inside that seal and roll it and push it through the first seal only. Do not push it any further than that. With your number 3 tool, this is the tool that's going to force the seal in one direction and mate with that bearing spacer. So what this is going to do is push the lip of this seal that's closest to you, and it's going to mate with that, allowing you to push that all the way through. So you can make sure that this number 3 tool has mated with that mandrel in the center, and you can kind of wiggle it around to make sure that it has. Then using your opposite hand, you're going to push this assembly through. That way it doesn't damage that seal that's closest to us. So you slightly feed it through, and now you can remove this tool, and that inner bearing spacer is through both seals. You can, at this point, we're going to install the bearing on the disc side. And you can put just a thin layer of grease on the outside of the bearing. Make sure it doesn't gall in the aluminum. These hubs have a slight lead on them, so it makes it easy to install the bearing. Use your bearing installation tool. And you must do this because you always want to make sure you're driving the bearing in from the outer race and not the inner race. You know that that now has seated. On the other side now, put the bearing spacer cap in there, and it'll just ride up on that. Again, a thin layer of grease on the outside of your bearing just to make sure it doesn't gall. Put that in the lead, and again, using your bearing driver, put that in and drive that all the way home. Now you should be able to put your fingers in there and feel that there's no play, that the wheel spins nicely. It's spinning on that seal. Go ahead and use a little bit of grease on the axle seals. Place them in there. Make sure they're sitting flat under the counterbore. And a little bit of grease on the outside of the adapter. Push that in. And again, do the same thing on the opposite side. Make sure that it's sitting flat in the counterbore there. And the cap on this side, go ahead and place it in there. And that is all there is to it, to replacing the Adaptrac seals.